Hello YouTube, Dave here again. Today I'm going to be giving you my relatively spoiler-free first impressions of Keys from the Golden Vault. This is the latest adventure book to come out for D&D 5th edition. This was sent to me by Wizards of the Coast for the purposes of making this and hopefully some other videos as well. So I do want to thank them for that. However, as is always the case, they are not pre-screening or scripting the video in any way, shape, or form. They'll get to see at the same time as everybody else does. And the opinions that I express in this video, as always, are 100% completely and totally my own. Keys from the Golden Vault is the latest in the Anthology series of modules or adventures, whatever you want to call them, that started with things like Tales from the Yawning Portal, Ghosts of Saltmarsh, Candlekeep Mysteries, and Journeys Through the Radiant Citadel. This contains 13 short scenarios intended to be run as one-shots or like 1 to 3 sessions for each of the adventures contained within, and runs for levels 1 through 11 and retails for $49.95 US or $65.95 Canadian. Now, with all the anthology books, they do tend to have some sort of central theme, and this theme is that this is all about heists. And that's one of the reasons that I do want to keep this spoiler light or as spoiler free as possible, because if you're somebody that might be interested in this as a player or potentially going into this as a player, I don't want to spoil any or too many of the events that can occur. You know, I'd rather just discuss some of the basic premises for a couple of the heists that are in here. A couple of the ones that I kind of like the most. Yeah, so we got the heist. This big part of this is the planning and execution. These are intended to be run. Also, each scenario is intended to be done as a one-shot or a one-off. It's not necessarily meant or fully intended for you to run this as a full-on campaign. However, that can be done if you decide to run this as a campaign, or if you just decide to incorporate the faction into your campaign anyway, to have the players do heists occasionally while still doing just their own other adventures, either of your own design or by plucking things out of some other published adventures from this edition or even editions past, or anything that you get your inspiration from. There is an organization called the Golden Vault, and the Golden Vault is an extraplanar faction that's sort of dedicated to the idea that doing good is the end goal, and things like laws are kind of secondary concerns. So the ends justify the means as long as it's advancing the cause of the greater good. They're believed to be also working alongside of metallic dragons, which makes sense. And what happens is, if the players join the Golden Vault, the keys from the Golden Vault are actually keys that are used with magic boxes that members of that organization receive. They put the key in the box and it plays a pre-recorded message that essentially gives them the plot hook for the heist that they're about to plan. This campaign also includes, or this campaign book also includes, a group of rival heisters. Is heisters? I don't know if heisters is the right term, but some rivals for the players that they may have to deal with over the course of the different adventures in here. They do give the motivations for them in each of the scenarios that we have in the book, as well as just a little bit of basic information on them and the stat blocks that you can use for them, depending on the different levels that your characters might be over the course of, using the scenarios in this book. So one of the things I actually really like about this book is simply the presentation. There's some really fantastic artwork in this book, but one of my favorite things, honestly, has to be the fact that each of these heists, because planning is such a big part of, heists in general, and because whenever you see like a heist movie, there's always that one part where somebody like rolls out a map on a table based on the information that they gathered by casing the joint or getting reports from others. These scenarios actually do include player maps that look like they're actually like hand sketched with notes that somebody that was casing the joint might put on there that they can use. And again, I absolutely love the way that they do that. You have, like, for this one, for example, it has, like, rooms that they couldn't get into. So it has, like, just the idea that maybe these are offices, as they're trying to get this magical MacGuffin from a museum, trying to figure out how to get down to the basement where the vault is, where the object might be stored. And of course, with all good heists, there's going to be complications. I can't help but think of like one of my favorite episodes of Star Trek Deep Space Nine. It was a side episode with the characters trying to help Vic Fontaine get his club back from like the mob that ended up taking it over. And the way they did that was to rob the casino. And if you're into that sort of thing, well, there is a scenario where what you're trying to do is literally rob a casino, because all good heists at one point need to dip their toes into a casino. And I am all for that. There's some really cool, objectives that the players might have. This casino, by the way, is in a casino, in an infernal casino run by evil creatures that are using wealth that they had stolen from individuals that could have used it for much better causes. So the players are there to try to right that wrong kind of thing. But again, just really cool concept. I love the fact that they did include a casino scenario in here. My personal favorite scenario in here, my personal favorite adventure, actually has to be the one where the characters are traveling to the prison of Revel's End in like the Icewind Dale region, which was, I think, touched on in the Rime of the Frostmaiden, which is actually a campaign that I just recently wrapped up. It was also featured in a couple of episodes of Acquisitions Incorporated. This is the one here. Again, really fantastic. The artwork in this book is, again, just really great. I do love that. The players are attempting to essentially infiltrate the prison, posing as guards, to make contact with a specific prisoner and to retrieve something from them. And again, I'm not going to spoil too much there. But the thing that I love about this, again, you've got what almost looks like a blueprint, which I think is kind of cool. A few different styles of like the players' maps that we have in here. But one of the things I actually really love about this scenario is it includes a mechanic that I 100% plan on lifting and using for my own personal campaigns if I'm designing adventures that involve the players posing as someone to infiltrate a specific organization or building or things along those lines. And what it is a suspicion mechanic. So when the adventure begins, the suspicion level starts at level 1. And essentially, when the characters enter different areas, there is a chance that there might be a patrol of other prison guards at that location that might prevent the characters from trying to do what they want to do, or that might start becoming hostile towards the characters if they raise the suspicion level a bit too high. The suspicion level is raised if the players posing as guards just do things that don't seem to make sense for the guards. If they're found in areas that are not where they're supposed to be patrolling, for example, or if they're interacting with prisoners in a way that just doesn't make sense for the guards to be doing, there's a chance that the suspicion level will raise, starting at 1, going up to 6. But the players do have a chance to actually defuse the situation if they're quick thinking enough to come up with a reason why their actions are justified, right? If they were essentially that they're found in somewhere they're not supposed to be, right, when they're on their patrol, a fast-thinking player character might just come up with the idea that, they are new and they read the plans wrong and they just got a little bit turned around and then asked for directions to get back to where they're supposed to be. And that might prevent the suspicion level from being raised. The higher the level, the smaller the dice that you roll whenever the players enter in location. If they roll a 1 on, or if you roll a 1 on the die, then it means that there is a patrol to be found there in that area. And again, you start with the D20 at suspicion level 1, and by the time if you're so bad at your cover story and being inconspicuous or super conspicuous, I guess. In this case, if you get your threat level or your suspicion level up to 6, you're rolling a d4 every time the players go from one location to another to potentially encounter a patrol. And if the characters raise the suspicion level, but then let things cool off for a bit, I think it's for every 8 hours that the time passes without anything else unusual happening. I think it does reduce, if I recall correctly, it reduces the suspicion level by 1. So you can go up and go down. There's ways to sort of mitigate it, but I just really love that mechanic, and I think it's a simple system, but it's a really great way, I think, to just have a mechanic in place, to, just instead of like putting patrols, and being accused of doing it out of spite, you can just let the dice determine that sort of thing. So this is my personal favorite scenario, largely just for that mechanic. But again, I do like Revel's End as a location. I liked the episodes of Acquisition Incorporated that took place there with Cathris and others. But yeah, just again, a really cool scenario. And like I said, I don't want to spoil too much more, but I really do think this is actually a pretty cool book overall. And one of the final scenarios involves potentially retrieving a very dangerous artifact, and we're gonna kind of leave it at there. Like, so this is the first impressions. This is just my initial thoughts, having spent a little bit of time flipping through this. I haven't had a chance to read it cover to cover or anything like that yet, and I might not for a little while. I did post on the community tab that there are some things going on, big life things that are occurring that are going to make regular videos a little bit difficult for the short-term foreseeable future. So I wanted to get something out as quickly as possible. But I will say, just in general, just the fact that it's an anthology book, and one of my favorite things as a DM, some of my most like rewarding experiences as a DM are situations where the players can take the time that they need to plot things out, right? To kind of come up with a plan of attack and then try to execute it and see how they deal with situations as things go awry. And there are suggestions for complications in this book. I wouldn't say to use them too often, but for example, if they're trying to find a specific item and they're told or they're expecting the specific item to be in this room, and that's the room that they make all of their plans to go to, then having it moved into a different room is perfectly fine. It's not that bad. It's okay to use some complications, but just don't go overboard with it. But I really do like the way that this is structured. I like the inclusion of the players' maps. I think they're really cool, but looking hand-sketched with hand-drawn maps. One of the maps actually has a stick figure drawn on it. I remember that very vividly, and just kind of getting a little bit of a chuckle out of that. And yeah, just in my experience, again, like I said, having the players actually be able to spend time coming up with plans and seeing them to fruition is just a great experience. And I really want to actually use this book in a future campaign, and probably not as an extended campaign going through all 13 of the heist, but there's at least a couple that I do plan on touching on and using in my games. And using these as a collection of modules is one of the main intended purposes. They are short. They are meant to be something that can be gone through in 1 to 3 sessions. They say that they're one-shots or can be run as one-shots, but depending on how long your sessions are, I would say 1 to 3 is probably a pretty fair estimate for the majority of these. And when it comes to the idea of a heist, first of all, I know that every group, just about at one point, is going to have somebody quote that Rick and Morty episode. I'm not going to say it here, but if you watch the show, you know the one. And I will say that this is probably the best heist-themed book that has come out for 5th edition, and there has been more than one. Keys from the Golden Vault presents the player characters with heists that are level appropriate, with enemies that are level appropriate, and with rewards that the players can actually tangibly hold on to or be compensated fairly for, unlike Waterdeep Dragon Heist, where the players are first level characters expected to eventually come across a vault with 500,000 gold in it, and then telling the players that they can't have it. So this book, just the fact that it actually pulls off heists a hell of a lot better than the Waterdeep Dragon Heist book. Scores are pretty high in my opinion, but the anthology books are my favorite adventure books for 5th edition. If they're not going to do modules, which again I really wish that they would just release, a monthly module, 30 pages, doesn't have to be anything too extensive, and that can include like handouts and maps and things along those lines, or even like a bi-monthly one. I would love to see Wizards releasing modules in the months where there's just nothing coming out. But if they're not going to do that, I would rather these anthology books over like a long-term campaign, especially since there's been so many campaigns that have been released for 5th edition that are like world-ending events. It just gets to be a little oppressive after a while, and every once in a while you just want to do something fun where you Ocean's 11 something, and that's totally fine, totally okay, and there's a really good collection of heists that can be used from this book. And, you know, it is designed for levels 1 through 11, but honestly, it's not that difficult to scale these up for higher levels if you really wanted to. You know, if you're doing the Revel's End one, for example, you just make the guards have more hit dice, increase the DCs a little bit. You could have different, more powerful creatures, like in the Infernal Casino. For example, you could just have more powerful, you know, evil extraplanar creatures, or you could, you know, give like character levels to some of the NPCs. There's some things you can do to modify this, but I think overall this is actually a pretty solid book with just some fun little scenarios where the players just, you know, get to pull off these, you know, daring heists. They get to plan things out. They get to rob places, and yeah, just it's just a fun premise. I just have to say, I think it's a fun premise. I don't think I would use this as a full campaign. Like, I think the idea of running 13 heists one after the other would probably wear thin after the first, like, 3 or 4. But my intention with this book is to pull scenarios out if there's a gap in the stories that I'm designing homebrew, or just something to give the players something to do on the side if there's downtime over the course of another campaign that they might be in. So I think it's a really fantastic book. I do recommend checking it out at your local game store to give them all the support that you can, because local game stores are the backbone of the gaming community. We do have the regular standard edition cover here, but we also have the game store exclusive, very shiny, metallic looking gold cover with the vault, you know, motif there, with the keyhole and a collection of keys on the back, and even the golden spines. This is something that's really going to stand out. It's not my favorite game store exclusive cover, but it is very much in line with what we have for the concept, the premise of the book. So I think it's pretty cool. And again, you know, check these out at your local game store, because your local game stores, you know, need all the support that they can get. Anyway, thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and it's probably going to be a little while before I get back to regular uploads. I do apologize for that. I'll have more information in the near future, sort of explaining everything. We're just waiting for everything to be properly, fully finalized, and then I'll give the update. But I do want to thank you guys for your support, for your understanding, and for taking time out of your day to check this out. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching. I appreciate it, and I will see you all next time. Until then, take care.